I got the awards, I did all the things, that I had to do while I was in the military, and I was very full of myself, very full of the accomplishments that I had made, so for me to be on that fucking sidewalk holding up that cardboard sign was the most humiliating fucking thing that I've ever experienced in my life.
Where I ask my guests, how did you do it and why?
My name is Jaime Martinez. I currently work for the largest behavioral health corporation in the United States of America. I lead the business development side for their veteran-facing team. So that's just a fancy way of saying I travel all over the state of Arizona, where I currently live, and the country, to find and identify veterans that need drug and alcohol abuse treatment and mental health treatment. And unfortunately, the reason that I'm very, very good at my job in the position that I am is because I've been there, done that, have that t-shirt. And I was almost a statistic, excuse me, a couple of times, unfortunately.
It sure sounded like that, and both out of the game. So in that capacity, what's the name of the place again?
Sure. Yeah. So I work for Summit Behavioral Health, and the closest treatment center to me is called Cane Vista Recovery Center. So it's a tough job, but as you all know, in recovery, helping other people is just the way. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 12 steps, but the last one,
very familiar, very familiar.
The last one is to give back, right? And what I've realized is that in giving back, it is the best kind of most selfish therapy for myself. It's part of it. Selfishly helping these ladies and these gents helps me as well. So I will continue to do this, and I will continue to pour my heart and soul into this, until nobody else is left behind.
How old are you now?
I am 38 years old.
38-year-old. Okay. So old guy like 64, we'd say you're just coming out of your diapers and you're getting into your stride,
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
I mean
sir.
that, that you become at some point in your life. And I can't remember when it was for me, but it was in my mid 30s. I was selling in my packaging industry, and all of a sudden I started noticing people like saying, "So Mark, what would you do?" And I would be like, looking around like, who's Mark? And, what? And, they say that, that's what, I don't think I'm any smarter. I just been around the loop a few more, I've seen the stones you could fall over. And they also say in our world or our country that whether it be wealth or whatever, your greatest kind of achievement period is from, like 40 to 55. And I always fought that, I always thought, no, I had a business of my own. No, I'm going to beat that number. I'm going to beat that number. No way. Lo and behold, 45 to 55, they were my hotspot, pretty much where game turned on, and then it started to be people were seeking me out for insight.
Yeah, what I've noticed is obviously not quite to that age range yet, but what I have noticed is the older I get, the more my priorities change. If we would have been having this conversation 5 years ago, my priorities would be cocaine, ecstasy, alcohol, myself, how I'm feeling. Everything would be about me and my experiences and my shortcomings. And the older I get, the more I realize that, being a good man entails worrying about everybody else in your circle, your wife, your kids, your family, your parents that are getting older, worrying about their happiness first, and not so much about, how happy you are. And, I'm a huge proponent. And I learned this because, again, unfortunately, I have that t-shirt where, I allowed myself to be selfish. A lot of people think, that drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, they don't see it as a person being selfish. They see it more as, somebody crying out for help or whatever the case might be. And just being point blank and honest, that was just me allowing myself to, care about nobody but myself and
Just
my
totally
feelings.
self-centered. Screw
A
everybody.
100%.
I
It's the
want,
most self-centered thing that you can do. I would literally lock myself in my bedroom, for days at a time. Not worrying about my kids, not worrying about my wife at the time, not worrying about making money for them. It was all about everybody needs to feel sorry about me and my experiences. Look at all the things that I've done. And
they're all trying to screw me. The government's a bunch of dicks. Big companies are out to steal.
yes,
Blah blah
sir.
blah blah blah. You got more reasons to hate than you can, you can shake a stick at. But let me fall back on that, because I think it's important. Sort of the traditional, stories of how it was, how you got here, and how it is now. But I think we should start off with, just to give people some insight into you. You received some commendations while in the Army in Iraq, and give us just a quick rundown of those. And you mentioned a fellow that I know is, I think it was Donnie, who was near and dear to your heart. So maybe just touch on that so we can get a little breadth.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my experiences. Um, so, in the Army, I was a combat medic. So, you know, um, in that position, unfortunately, for better or for worse, you get to see, and experience a lot of things that most human beings don't. And by that I mean your literal brothers and sisters dying in your hands, under your care. And that happened to me on more than one occasion, more times than I can count or think of, and it just kind of makes you crash after a while. But
And cold to it,
that.
just kind of cold to it, like it's just
Yes,
or
yes,
at least
exactly.
mentally you compartmentalize it, I guess.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, but the one experience, the one gorilla that I couldn't shake off my back, unfortunately, was my squad leader. I was a 20-year-old kid at this time. In
Oh,
Iraq, I knew nothing about anything. I thought I was invincible. I thought that,
oh yeah.
we're fucking Americans. We're the shit. Ain't nobody can step to us. This is cake. This is gonna be nothing. And unfortunately, I learned really quickly, and the hard way, that that's not the case. Out of respect for the family of Staff Sergeant Dixon, I don't like to go into how
No, please don't. No,
it went
please
down.
don't.
But what I will say is that uh, he saved my life. And to not be able to save his after he saved mine was the most traumatizing thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And being completely honest with you, it
Hmm.
wasn't until about 3 weeks ago that I was finally brave enough to go see his grave in Florida. And the reason that I didn't do it was because, again, because of my selfishness. It was because it was all about, how am I going to feel in this moment? How am I going to tell D, that I've been an absolute waste of life. That I've been selfish. That I didn't keep up with his wife, with his son. That I just kind of became a hermit and locked myself in a closet, for the better part of 10 years. How am I going to tell him these things when in reality, what I needed to realize is this man gave absolutely everything, not only for his country, but for me. He deserves, he deserves that I take my butt down there. He deserves that I start communication with his wife, with his kids. He deserves that I tell his story, about the great human being that he was, and about the father figure that he was while we were, deployed in Iraq that time. And,
And how
again, it
much
just
and
came
how much
down.
of a young kid you were.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
just,
give yourself a little credit there. I mean, that's,
yeah.
let's not delve into it into great depth, but I'm presuming when you run into some of these young men or maybe young women, it's pretty quick that you can ascertain their likelihood of pulling through the thing.
It's unfortunately,
Or if
but you're,
you don't want to talk about it, I'm
no,
fine
no,
with.
no, this is what I do. And my only hope, is that if even one veteran, clicks that thumbnail and listens to this podcast, that they understand that they're not alone. And this is a process that isn't special to them. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way where, hey, we all go through this. And I always tell the veterans that I come across, I'm not special in any fucking way. I'm not strong in any way. I'm not smarter than you. I'm just a dude that decided to fucking get over it, and move on with his life and become something that he can be proud of. And I just want other veterans that will potentially watch this podcast to understand that it's possible for them to.
Okay.
And that means a lot to me. So I have no
How long
problem
did
talking about it.
pardon me, sorry to interrupt you. How long did you serve in Iraq?
Yeah, so I served in the Army for the better part of 8 years, did 2 4-year
Wow.
terms. Yeah.
Wow. And so you did sign back up.
Yes, sir.
Wow. And throughout the whole time being, a medic out there?
Yes, yeah, I was a medic the entire time. And wouldn't, it's as a man, the way that you suffer kind of makes you the person that you are. And unfortunately, some of us aren't able, like yourself, get past that point where, they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, this is enough. I need to move on. I need to do something different. So, I've noticed that, in my work, there's 2 ways that it goes. The veteran like me that just says enough of this shit. And then the other veteran, the other veteran that dies, unfortunately, that ends up passing away due to, their alcoholism, their drug use, or, unalives themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Now you got these commendations for valor. What probably our listeners don't know much about that. And maybe you don't want to talk about it. I know you don't want to brag for any reason at all, but in more of a factual sense, what were they given for?
So a V device, they call them the V device, a valor device, is typically given for a service member that experiences, actual kinetic combat. So my awards were given to me for running into enemy fire, and treating the service members that were injured throughout that kinetic engagement. So, a big part of my job as a line medic is to not think. It is to react. And when somebody's shot and they're bleeding out, it is my responsibility to go out there, get them and make sure that they come home. I was successful a lot of the times and I was unsuccessful as well.
Yeah. And are you just going on adrenaline, and you must be shitting your pants when you're going into that, or are you not? Or are you just locked in on, I don't know.
So a big part of the training that we do in the military is to break that down, or to break you down and break that out of you, right? Honestly, in the moment, it's just a job. You don't think, nor do you care. The only thing that you know is that you have a job and you have to accomplish it. And if you don't accomplish it, somebody's not coming home. So it's one of those things where, you just gotta do it. And there's no choice to not do it.
Well, we all love to assume we'll respond properly to that, but that's neither here nor there. Now falling back to kind of, maybe traipsing through a little bit of your youth and say maybe your I'm going to join the Army experience. You mentioned that your father was a pretty tough guy.
Yeah. My dad. My father's an immigrant from El Salvador. My mother's an immigrant from Mexico. They brought those traditional values with them. Everybody had a role. And my dad's role was to get me ready for how tough life was going to be for me as I grew up. A lot of the reason as to why I was able to get past my PTSD and my mental health issues were because my dad put in all that work as I was growing up. It was just one of those things where he at the time, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why, he was so tough on me, why the expectation was so much higher for me than it was for, my sister, and it's just because he understood that life for me, was going to be difficult. And he had assumed that at some point in time, I was going to run into some trials and some things that I'm going to have to fight through. And because he toughened me up as a child, I'm here today, and I was able to get past that. So having a strong father is one of the most important things that a child can have.
Yeah, I was raised in a, I presume, were you raised with a general Roman Catholic upbringing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was one of 8 kids from Philly, big Irish Catholic family, youngest of 5 boys, all boys Catholic school. And my old man, I mean, it helped me. You did what he said, man. And,
Yes, sir.
he was a very loving man. And I knew that underneath. But, he was scary to me. If his
100%.
voice came up, it could make me cry when he raised his voice. And right through all of us, I remember we used to fight in our neighborhood just outside of West Philly. And, my dad would always say, like he'd ask, somebody, Joey, Tom got in a fight. Well, all right, what happened? So you'd want to know. Of course, you couldn't have started it, even if you did. So you lied to dad. And then you always come up with something like, he said something bad about mom, or some ridiculous thing. And then the other one was it a one-on-one fight?
Yeah.
You don't have no 2-on-1s.
Yeah.
Okay. And roughly kind of work you through it. And then, okay. And, and then, so we went through this, and my mom would go, you really shouldn't do that. He goes, how much can a 12 and 13-year-old kid hurt each other with their fists? I mean, what's the worst going to break a nose, break a finger? I mean, they're going to survive, and we were all and we had 3 sisters too, and they were obviously treated on a different, kind of a different standard back then. Although my fifth,
100%.
my one daughter was stuck between the 5 of us, and tell you what, she's a tough girl, man. You don't fuck with her. but anyway, in the end, that sort of sense of, you're just a scrappy Irish kid, and you're going to, and we're very well educated, to his credit. We never moved out. He had the money to move. I always say, why weren't we living in a nice neighborhood? We were living in a nice neighborhood, but it wasn't like fancy pants like I thought we should have. And as I got older, I started to realize, smart move. He didn't want me to be some, kid who thought he was, hotsy-totsy. So we were, it wasn't like nasty neighborhoods. But it didn't take far to get into parts of Philly that were best not traveled. So anyway, it sounds like we share maybe similar upbringing.
100%. The best thing my father did for me was come here with nothing, because he showed me that it was possible to come with nothing and make a very good life for yourself, and raise good children, and live that actual American dream. I'm talking about, my father and my mother are the representation of what that means. They came here with nothing, not a penny in their pants. They've made it as far as they have. Both of them extremely successful. They raised good children, and it was for me to see my father and my mother grind the way that they did and give us the things that they gave us. I have no excuse. No, they gave me what they didn't have.
Nor I. I say people, listen, white kid, well loved, good education, taken care of. In our society, that's a good launch point. You know what I mean? I got nothing but lucky coming there, and I still tried to fuck it all up. So whatever, that we don't have to talk about that. So tell me just a little bit of your path to the Army, and then maybe tumbling into when the alcohol and drugs things or started to tick in. So let's give me a minute on that. Give us a few minutes.
You got it. Yeah. So I played baseball in high school, and wrestled a little bit. So I thought, I was this amazing athlete that was going to play baseball, in the major leagues. And I quickly realized, once I got out of my little bubble, got around other, regional stars, if you want to call them that, uh, my shit smelled a little bit. You know what I
Nasty,
mean?
nasty when it hit
Yeah,
the ground.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I quickly realized that wasn't going to happen for me. So 9/11 had happened, about a year or two before I graduated, and that I was stuck in my head. I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in English class. And I walked into class, and the entire class was just around the TV, and I was like, what's happening? And I remember it vividly to this day. My English teacher, just looking at the screen and just frozen, tears coming
Yeah,
down
we
her
all
eyes,
were. We all
just
were.
frozen. I had never seen a human being like that before, like
Mhm.
that, bothered by what was
Yeah,
happening.
I was on my way to the airport for sales calls. I traveled a whole lot, and I remember, they're shutting down the airplanes. They're putting up, fighter jets. And it's like,
Yeah.
just scary shit.
Yeah, yeah. So, that stuck with me. So when I realized that, my baseball dream wasn't going to happen for me, I sat around for a little bit, and I asked myself, what I want to do? What do I want to do with my life? I'm just this kid that grew up in this shitty Southern California town called El Monte, that fortunately hadn't fallen into the gangs, and at that time, the drugs and everything that was going on in that little Southern California town. I was able to get through that, and somehow, some way, get through high school and make it, into college. And for me, it was just one of those things where I needed passion. I need something that was going to drive me, because I had hung my hat on this one thing, and I was passionate about that. So I knew that I needed to go in a route where I was going to be engaged.
Yeah,
Um,
you're a young man. You're fired up. You got to go. You got to go
exactly.
punch something, chase something,
You
tackle
got
something,
it.
whatever it is.
Yeah. So one of my buddies, said, "Hey, I just joined the army, and he was one of my best friends at the time. He's like, we should go together." And I was like, "Okay, cool." No
You hit
idea
it.
what I was getting myself
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
None, zero.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's how that happened.
And then at this point, you're not. I guess as a kid, you're just drinking beers here and there with your buddies,
Yeah,
and
no,
yeah,
and yeah, and even that, I was never a big drinker. I was like the opposite of a drug user. I was that guy that was like, you dare say no to drugs, terrified of them, wouldn't even smoke
I
weed.
didn't want you
Yeah.
around at 18. You're really bothering me. I'm like, stay away from that guy. What the hell? What kind of weird dude is he?
Yeah, yeah.
But so now off to now you've obviously joined the army, and what kind of decisions do you have to make in that as to you end up being in this medical team, but I mean, how do you hack through that and say, gee, I'm going to go that direction?
So yeah, I had a conversation with my mother. My mother's very successful in the medical field herself, and what I didn't want to do was join the army and not have skills, that would directly translate into the civilian world afterwards.
Hmm.
So being a medic was the job that I chose because it kind of, went along with what my mom wanted for me at the time,
But
which is,
don't they
to be in the
have
medical
to?
field.
Sorry, I keep stumbling over here because
No,
I
you're
have
fine. Yep.
questions to ask you. They have to let you do it. You can't just say I want to do it.
Correct. So the vetting process is, you know, it's all based off of the Army's needs, and also how did you score on your physical test? How did you score? They call them the ASVAB on your practical tests, and your written test. And once you get through that, you get choices, right? I was just lucky enough to be smart enough to be able to pick a job in the medical field, and I was also lucky enough that I was going in at a time where it was just after 9/11, so it was a
They
little
needed
bit
it.
easier. It was a little bit easier to kind of pick what it is that you wanted because it just needed people everywhere. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So it made sense for me to take that path, and the job was open in the first place, and I scored high enough on my test to be able to do that. So it's not something where where you join the army, you say, "Oh, I want to be this." It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's always what's best for the army.
Yeah. And then after that training, how long from the time you say, I'm going to join the army to the time you're in Iraq? How much, I mean, how much time is that? A year, 2 years, half a month?
2000 and about 2.5 years.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're getting some serious, I mean, they're giving you they're putting it on you. You know, you just,
Yeah. So there's a lot of schooling that happens, and a lot of training that has to happen, as well. They're not just going to toss you out there into combat. Yeah, it's a good thing. They vet you, and they make sure that you can get through the training at home before they send you out there. And for me, that was, with basic training, with medic school, with the specialty classes that I went to, and then getting stationed at my at Fort Hood, which is where I went to initially. It was about a 2.5 year process.
Okay. So now we chatted a little bit about your time in Iraq, and to what extent, well, obviously to a considerable extent, when was it that the sort of the use of different, whatever, drugs, alcohol, getting high, whatever, when did that sort of kick in?
Yeah. So I was at the end of my time in the military. I was getting ready to get out, and I was living in Barstow, California at the time, which is, people don't know where Barstow is. It's the bathroom on the way from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. That's what Barstow
I've been through
is.
it. I sold down in that area. Not a lot of good leads, but what the hell? We went down there. I think didn't they do a lot of like dried fruits down there?
Yeah.
That's, I remember that down there.
Victorville, Barstow area. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Victorville, the whole, and then there's a shitload of raisins down there.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I was trying to sell shit to those guys, you know. What's interesting down there, and just to pause for, there was a whole shitload of Armenians down there. I don't know if you ever knew that. Like,
no.
They were all over, like Guzba, that Jian, the last name, Chicasian, and this and that. So I asked this guy, in Philly, there was an Armenian Orthodox church, and the girls there were gorgeous. So I said to the guy, why are there so many Armenians out here? And he said to me, when the Armenians left Armenia, it so happened that they had a history in that type of agriculture. And when they came to the U.S. and they got into where, that valley, that was something that fit into their lifestyle. I'm like, man, it's just little things you learn about the States. Like, you came up from El Salvador, Mexico. I came in from Ireland, where we decided to drink and go to Philly. So, that's what we did. But anyway, so now you're down in Barstow, and continue from there.
I was out at Barstow, and I was out with my buddy, who was also just was also about to get out of the military. So we grew up. I went to, or graduated from high school. I grew up in Monte, California, but I moved over to Pomona, finished high school in Pomona. So he was from the same town, and he would go back down to Pomona, which is about a 2-hour drive quite often. Unbeknownst to me, he was going down there to procure ecstasy and cocaine to sell to soldiers. You know what I mean?
Not a bad market.
Yeah, exactly. My man was a salesman for sure.
Yeah, he knew how to work it.
He knew the market. He knew the people that would potentially benefit from his products.
Make a buck.
Exactly. Yeah, so he offered me ecstasy one night. We were at a club. I wouldn't even call it a club, some shithole bar in Victorville or Barstow or something like that. So he offered me some ecstasy. At this time, I had not even smoked weed. Like, I had not touched a single fucking drug in my life. I drank a little bit of alcohol, but again, I wasn't like, I was always into fitness. I wasn't like the drunk guy ever. Like, so at first I was like, fuck no, what are you talking about? And he was like, all that shit that's making you crazy in your head, you take this and it's going to fix all of that. So he sold me on it. And I ended up taking ecstasy that night. And what he said was completely correct. I can't sit here and be a fucking hypocrite. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. Some of the best fucking nights in my life happened while I was high on drugs and drunk on alcohol.
You got to admit that it is fun. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yep.
So, we don't want to sell it to anybody, but when you're there for the first part, it's fun. A lot of good
Yep.
shit. So now let's say this starts to ramp. And how old are you now? You're at that point where the shit starts to hit the fan?
26, 27, something like that.
Okay. So now, and are you aware at this time that you are suffering from some form of PTSD?
No, fuck no. That is frowned upon big time. At least back then, when when you were still in. It's not something you talk about, and it's not something that you admit to anybody. And the reason is because if you're dealing with these things, then you're not going to have the opportunity to train with your men. You're not going to have the opportunity to deploy with your men. You're not going to have an opportunity to be a productive person in the military. And there's merit to that, if I'm honest with you, right? Because if I'm in fucking combat and I'm getting shot at and I'm too fucked up in the head to go do my job, somebody's going to die.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I don't want you there if I'm the guy out there getting sick or I'm going to run out there. Fuck that. Don't be telling me you're all fucked up. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, and you know how it is as boys and as men. You know what I mean? It's you build that camaraderie, and if you're not part of us, you're not part of us.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah.
Men are different, man. Once we boot you out,
It's
rarely
it.
are you coming back. Game over.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, as a medic, I knew that there was something wrong with my brain. However, I wasn't in a position to admit it to myself until I got out of the Army.
Yeah. So now, guy gives you ecstasy, and the engines turn on. You found an answer.
Yep. I mean,
and now, I want to jump back to this, but I want to touch it. But let's get into the drug thing. I want to circle back to your marriage, but then, so let's get this portion. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of, you do it chronologically for me. You all of a sudden you're ripping now.
Yeah. So that night I realized that this little drug would allow me to say all the fucking things that I never thought I would be able to say. And it felt good, man. It felt so fucking good to just get this shit off of my chest, right? So, it started with once a weekend. I'm going to allow myself this therapy once a weekend.
Sure.
Not a big deal. Once a weekend. This
Saturday night only. Saturday night only.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no big deal. Saturday. Well, how that goes. It turns into Friday and Saturday. Then it turns into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then by the time you know it, it's fucking 5 to 7 days a week. And you're absolutely fucking useless because the only thing that you're chasing is that high, right?
And you're getting drunk, then you're drinking pretty heavily the whole time.
Exactly, right? It's I tell people that and cocaine was my other drug of choice. I tell
another
people
tasty one.
Cocaine and alcohol and ecstasy and alcohol are like peanut butter and jelly, man. You can't have one without the other. That's just the way it works. And throughout my entire journey of drug use, like I never just drank alcohol. I could never just drink alcohol. I would say no if that's all I had. Right. Yeah. I never just did cocaine or ecstasy. I would say no if that's all I had. I had to
wrap it up
together. Exactly. That's what gave me that ability to just get all this shit off of my chest. So I found out really quickly.
You like the girls. I understand. You had an enjoyment for the, as they say, wine, women, and song.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, I found out really quickly that, that using drugs in that capacity wasn't going to be productive, and it wasn't going to be a life that I could live if I wanted to be successful in my marriage and successful in my career. And within my family. And unfortunately, I had to lose everything to find that out. And by everything, I mean my wife at the time, my house, my daughter, my son. I lost absolutely everything. I was literally the homeless veteran on the side of the fucking street holding up a cardboard sign at one point.
And did I presume mom, dad, wife, kids all attempted in some way or another to pull you back onto the boat?
100%. And bless their soul. I thank them for everything that they tried to do to me. But when you're in that state, and again, I hate to go back to you well know, but
No, go for
you
it. I
well
mean,
know.
yeah, man, go
Yeah,
ahead. You're not telling me. I mean, I listen to this story a lot, and I feel
yeah.
it inspires me, and I think our listeners will be inspired. So go ahead.
You can't force somebody to get sober. You just can't.
Okay.
It's just
Nope.
not going to happen. You can't fucking hold interventions. You can't drive them to fucking rehab. You just can't. They have to be, they have to be willing to do it for themselves. And unfortunately, that process for me took 2012 to 2021.
Mhm.
It took that long, for me to finally look at myself in the mirror and tell myself, hey, dumbass, you've lost everything and everybody that's important to you. This is the fork in your life. And if you continue to choose this path, you're going to be dead or in jail.
Mhm.
But if you choose this path and get your shit together, you can become a man that's proud of the life that he's living. And again, I tell veterans this all the time. The path where you're selfish and on drugs and alcohol, that's the easier path, my dude.
For
It, that's
sure.
the that's the easy path. You get to worry about nobody but yourself.
Yeah.
Picking this path where you now have to deal with your problems head on, where now you have to provide for your family, where now you can't lock yourself in a bedroom whenever you feel bad. When you have all this pressure of family, work, life, and all these things, it is harder. But guess what? You get to be proud going this way. And I chose proud rather than easy.
Or humiliating, demoralized. I mean, listen, sitting out with a cardboard thing in front of you, it's got to be a big fall.
For me, I got on as a non-commissioned officer, in the Army. It's just a fancy way of saying I led soldiers in combat. I was a badass. I got the awards. I did all the things, that I had to do while I was in the military, and I was very full of myself and very full of the accomplishments that I had made. So for me to be on that fucking sidewalk holding up that cardboard sign was the most humiliating fucking thing that I've ever experienced in my life.
But you wanted to get fucked up, so you did what you had to do.
Yes,
And
sir.
during that time, you lost your wife, and your children are estranged from you.
Yeah. So, not anymore.
Thank
I've
God.
been able to build a relationship with my son. And he actually he lives with me now full time.
Cool. Good for you.
So I went from not having any custody of him to having full custody of him. And that, if you wanted to ask me what my greatest accomplishment in life is, it's not leading a team for the biggest, BHT in the United States. It's not making the money that I'm making now. It's not owning the house. It's not, it's none of those things. It's being able to be a father. That is my greatest accomplishment in life, to be able to now sit with my son and be able to raise him and be able to coach him like my father did. To have that opportunity when not too long ago he wasn't at all part of my life is my biggest accomplishment.
Well, I think that so many people that I know in recovery. In fact, I have a young man now that I work with, and it's all fucked up, put it bluntly. And yeah, I tell him, kids want to love their parents. They're pissed, they're angry, they're hurt, and they don't know how to do it. They don't know what other than just reject you, because you're fucked up.
Yeah.
And now, it doesn't take a ton of time if you want to walk the right line, that they'll try to come back. And if I understand, you're still estranged from your daughter.
Yes.
That's what you know. But I, and I know, with hard work and faith, that I believe that will be repaired.
That's it. And back in the day, I used to blame my ex-wife. You took my daughter away from me. You did this to me. She was she was in the army as well, right? So she experienced a lot of things that I experienced, So it's like, hey, we're on the same team here. Like, why are you doing this to me? And as I've gotten sober and as I've gotten older and as my priorities have changed, I've realized that pointing the finger isn't going to fix anything. What's going to fix things is me putting my fucking head down, grinding like I do 6-7 days a week, making sure that I have my money together, my fitness together, my parenting skills together, my marriage together, and making sure that I'm able to show that, and eventually what's going to happen is she's going to see it.
Yep.
And I'm going to be able to build that relationship again. So, if I had some advice for people that are watching that maybe are estranged from their children, don't blame the other person, man. Put your fucking head down, grind, and eventually, like you said, with faith, you'll build that relationship again. Pointing the finger at other people does nothing.
A guy that I work with, and he helps me out with. I always dislike the word sponsor because I've had him so long now. I just call him a mentor and a friend. It kind of passed, it could have morphed into that over time. But he used to always say to me, listen, Mark, life just sucks sometime. Just sucks. And you know what you have to do? Grind it.
Yeah.
That's it. You got no fucking choice.
Yeah.
And it may last a long time.
Yeah.
And I've had periods in recovery that I've suffered with depression, anxiety, for considerable periods of time where getting out of bed and just doing the do was like, it's all I could do. I get to the office, I come home, just do my damned. I have 5 daughters. Do my damnedest to help my wife with them. And the minute it ended, just jump under my blankets.
Yeah,
they're very demoralizing. But I had faith that somehow it would end, and it did with help. When did you come to the per se? Were you aware that you had PTSD? Like, when would you say, "Oh, I had this"?
The minute I discharged from the military, I allowed myself, probably before, but I didn't allow myself to understand that until the minute I got out of the military. That's when, it's like that monkey hopped on my back.
But you said the first time you did ecstasy, it went away. So obviously you were running from it for a while.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But you knew it was there.
No, I knew it was there. But I was kind of, waiting my time in the army. I think I maybe had 6 or 7 months left. So, for those 6 or 7 months, the route that I chose to take was, let's just do drugs and let's just drink alcohol and let's not even let ourselves realize what's happening here. You know what I mean? This isn't something that I want to deal with. This isn't something that I want to admit to myself. And the easiest way to not admit it to myself is to just go get fucked up. So that's what I chose to do.
Yeah. Well, you're young. You just think, whatever, I'll rip this for a while and it'll go away.
Exactly.
So now what obviously at some point, as you mentioned, what was the calamitous event that made you say, I got to get clean? Was there some like, boom?
So I'd say a couple of things. The first thing was I had a time in my life where partying became my job. I was actually a DJ for one of the biggest companies down here in Arizona.
Really?
So I used to play festivals. I used to play, massive clubs. I used to do all that stuff.
Oh, cool. And make a pretty good buck.
Yeah, so except I was spending that pretty good buck.
Yeah, sure. Bring 100 in, spend 110.
Exactly. Yeah, so I got contracted to play a show up in Tucson, Arizona. I'm currently residing in Phoenix, so it was about an hour and a half drive.
Yep, I know.
So so what happened was I went out there and I had my drugs procured already.
Of course.
So I played my set and realized I had run out of drugs, so I was frantic trying to find more because I didn't want to be alone. Most of the time what ended up happening is I ended up finding a random girl,
well, there we go.
Not a big deal. I'm not alone, right? But this night it didn't happen for me. So
no drugs, no women. Now you're really stuck.
Well, yeah. now I actually deal with my shit. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I remember going back to my hotel room and I was just coming down, man. It bad, and somehow, some way in my fucked up head, I decided that wrapping the fucking shower curtain around my neck would be a good way to kill myself.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it was about 220 pounds, and
Yeah, not a good. Given a look at
that
you, I don't think the
that,
shower
it,
curtain's going to
that,
make it.
that didn't fucking work. That didn't fucking work out for me, luckily.
Yeah.
And so I just remember sitting there crying, and having to deal with my shit, and you know, as the morning came, I just realized it was the first time that I had ever given myself an opportunity. Well, not I didn't even give it to myself. It just kind of backed into that opportunity. But it was the first time, throughout that period of drug use and alcoholism, that I was forced to just sit there and think. It was
Oh
the first
fuck.
time, and
Oh,
as
that's fun.
painful as that was, I came to the conclusion that my life was fucked up, and that I need
It
to make a
sounds like
change.
it. Just to be objective, it sounds like you got it pretty good and fucked up at this point.
Yo, yeah, man, I was no good to nobody, not even myself. So I that led into me being introspective about what the fuck was happening in my life. But and it's funny that you mentioned this, because I did watch some of your podcasts before. You had a gentleman on there, and you guys were kind of talking about uh you know how most people say, like, you got to change, or you can't change for anyone but yourself.
Yeah.
And the gentleman was like, but my wife kind of helped a lot.
Yeah.
Same fucking thing, man. I met my current wife now, and you know she, instead of trying to fight me, instead of trying to change me, what she did was she gave me an option. And it was the most heartfelt thing that I've ever experienced. And I remember her sitting there crying and saying, "Hey, I love you to death, but you have two choices, and you need to make that choice today. Either it's me or it's the alcohol." And you know, I mean, it's hard to not get emotional, because if it wasn't for that conversation, and if it wasn't for this woman in my life, I'd be dead today. 100% Did I want to change? Yes, I already had that, that moment where I was allowed to be introspective about what was happening in my life. But now I had a reason. And that reason was because it is my job to protect, provide, and to lead for this wonderful fucking human being. And she deserves that from me. She deserves that I get up every fucking morning, not hungover, not high. And no matter how I feel, sad, mad, happy, with anxiety, it doesn't fucking matter. I need to get up and I need to do for her what she deserves, because she gave me that. She
Chop
gave me
wood.
a reason to fucking live and a reason to change. And I owe her that. And because of that, it's just one of those things where this is always going to be more important now than the shit that I dealt with in the past. I always tell veterans, your past experience is not an excuse for you to be a shitbag. Period. End
Yeah.
of story.
Well, and we pray that a small percent hear it, and a small percent, unfortunately, a large percent, just we can blame them, argue, whatever. They just can't. They can't get over it, man, and it's
Yeah.
sad. What were the therapeutic ways that you've used to work with and try and fight with your PTSD?
So, I want to preface this by saying that this worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want other veterans to think that my path is the path that they should take. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I've never been to a therapist that has ever done anything good for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never taken a drug, to include the cocaine and the ecstasy and the alcohol, that has ever done anything good for me. You know, I've been through the VA system, and you know, they would just toss. I literally just threw away a garbage fucking bag, one of those big garbage black bags full of just medicine, from the VA, that I had never used. Uh, I just one day decided to quit being a fucking pussy and to quit being selfish. All I did was change my mindset. That's all it was. Right now,
As it's known as a psychic change. Something just went
exactly.
click.
It just so obviously, you know, it's deeper than that, right? I had my wife, that I now had, you know, support from, that you know, gave me that choice, that gave me the opportunity to you know, protect, provide, and lead for her. You know, I had you know, my son coming back into my life. I had all these things that were happening at once, and I had a choice, and it was, hey, you know, quit being selfish and do what you have to do as a man, or continue to be selfish and live the easy life. And I
But
just,
prior to that,
yeah,
without this sort of shift, you
yeah,
just would have kept being a shithead. The wife and the kid didn't mean anything to you. I mean, you know,
exactly.
when you were getting wasted.
1,000%. So it was, I don't know what you would call it, right? But it's just one of those things where I just looked at myself in the mirror, and you know, again, remember this vividly. You know, 2 nights no sleep. I looked like absolute fucking shit. You know, I had long hair at the time. My hair was everywhere. You know, I smelled like fucking shit, and it was just like, is this is this what you want? You know, is this what you want to continue to do, with your life? And I just couldn't do that anymore. I don't know. You know, maybe it did happen, you know, because yeah, I had the upbringing that I had, where, you know, I was able to kind of toughen through things. You know, maybe it was the fact, well, I know it was the fact that I was getting older, more mature, my priorities, were changing. You know, I know I had a lot to do, you know, with my current wife coming into my life, and being the one person, you know, that gave me that choice, and actually supported me through that choice once I did make that choice. You know, I think if I could give, you know, men specifically, if I could give them, you know, some advice, it'd be,
Please do.
surround yourself around other successful men, and make sure that the woman that you pick is a woman that is going to push you in a way that you're going to attain success and not hold you back.
Yep.
And I think those are the things coming together that helped. I ended up in Arizona. I had, I was working as a general manager for a UFC gym, in California.
I saw that, you know,
Yeah.
just taking a look at your body, I think
Mhm.
there's no shortage of exercise.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So
you know, you look like you're quite fit and probably a
yeah,
strong young lad.
yeah. So I was
I'm not going
working.
to fight you right now, okay? Just so you understand. We're-
That's all. That's also part of what I do, mixed martial arts. But
yeah.
yeah. So I was working, and you know, it closed down, and luckily I had this gentleman. His name's Chad, who offered me a position down here in Phoenix. You know, as a district, manager for, a group of Orange Theory Fitnesses. So what ended up happening is I moved out here, and you know, this was a successful, you know, God-fearing man, uh, amazing father, an amazing husband. And what I ended up doing was I ended up surrounding myself around more men like that were successful, you know, that were good fathers, that were living that life that I wanted to live. And what ended up happening was, whenever, you know, I fell off the wagon, or I didn't do the things that I was doing, they would call me out on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they would call me out on my shit, you know? And that helped so much, because what I was missing was that brotherhood from the military, right?
Sure.
We
We
would
all
tell
are.
each other,
Most guys are.
yeah, man, we would
I'm
tell
women
each
too,
other.
I guess, but I can only speak from being a dude,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know.
So, you know, while we're in the military, we would tell each other, hey, dude, you're fucking up. Like, because it would directly lead to consequences on the battlefield. And I think outside of my wife, and outside of my age and maturity, surrounding myself around other successful men was probably the smartest thing that I ever did, because to keep the company of other successful men, you have to provide something. There needs to be an ROI, right? Successful man's never going to sit here and just speak to you and just for no reason. There's got to be a story. There's got to be an ROI. We're sitting here today because we want to promote each other and want to tell a story and whatever. There's a return on investment when you're hanging out with other successful men. So I learned really quickly, that I had to provide something to be part of that group, to be part of that crew. That made me want to work harder. That made me want to stay sober, because the other thing that I learned is, if I'm out here fucking around, these men, they are going to take everything that I want from me, because they're outworking me, because they're waking up earlier than me, because they're not out there drinking, because they are out in the gym, because they are professionally developing themselves. You know what I mean? And if I'm not doing those same things,
let me tell
they're going to kill me. Yeah.
You're speaking my language. I'm a sales guy. And let me tell you what, I had the theory that somebody's working harder than me. Yeah. Somebody's learning more. I'm telling you, people in my office used to call me, this is after I was clean, they'd say he's the Tasmanian devil. I was just balls to the wall. Yeah. I remember thinking when I was a kid, I said this on a recent 10-minute little blurb that I did, just of blabbering on one of my short episodes, was that I always remember in the mid to late 80s that, mid to late 80s, they were talking about how the Japanese quality control was going to, beat us and all this stuff, which they did do some great work. But I always just had this vision in my mind that there's some kid in Japan right now who's outworking my ass.
Yep.
That's my competition.
Yeah.
These guys in this office, I'd figured out, lazy. They don't have balls to the wall. One or two of them. But, they didn't have balls to the wall. You in or you out. And if you're halfway out, people are sprinting past you and you don't even know it. So I bully on that plan, young man. Keep that shit up. And having good role models. Mm-hmm. One other thing I would say is, at work, I became friends with people really good after I noticed their work ethic. That was their threshold for me was, are you going to work your balls off? Now I'm going to take the time to get personally. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, you're just another guy or gal showing up, punching a check. And then you pick the ones that are good. Now you want to glom towards them for your own benefit.
Yeah. And I want your viewers to know that it doesn't take that long, man. 3 years ago, I was fucking making $40,000, addicted to drugs and alcohol, not doing shit for myself. Today, I'm making six figures, and, I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. I'm a God-fearing man, and everything changed that fucking fast. You know what I mean? It doesn't take that long. We live in this great fucking country that allows us to strap up our fucking boots and just outwork motherfuckers.
Unlike, and now I'm a believer that the younger folk in our country, okay, we can take a shit on them forever. Oh, they don't do this, they don't do that. I believe that between, there's some element of, I don't want to do exactly what my dad did, which a lot of us don't. You look at the dad and you say, here's a million reasons I love him, and here's the things I don't want to do. Okay, good. You learn from that. So now they're a little bit flummoxed by that. Our culture up to that point has not given them the sense of really push the ball, but let's leave that aside. The good ones will. The next thing is, you start getting into social media, and there's this barrage of shit about people. They're always happy and they're always rich. So now you got this 24-year-old kid who hasn't had any per se, rough life experience, or he has, but not too much. And he gets into my office, and you say, here's what you're going to do. You're going to be an inside salesman. You're going to pick up the phone, 100 times a day, and you're going to pound your ass off. Yeah. And you're going to do it for a year before you even get any real recognition. And that's just something they can't conceive. And in a way, it's part of why I'm on this right now with you. I want them to learn that, no, shit doesn't come easy.
This is, you can deal in what should be or what is. And what is that there are a lot of motherfuckers like you just described. So if you're that one motherfucker that does decide, I'm going to fucking grind, I'm going to earn this shit, I'm going to outwork everybody. I'm going to be the first one in the office, the last one to leave. I'm going to, be at the gym 5 o'clock in the morning. If you are that motherfucker in today's world, you will succeed,
No,
period.
you'll
End of
shine.
fucking story. That's
Oh,
it. Because
I
it
used to
doesn't
say,
exist anymore.
no, in my, I got to keep overrunning you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
Man, because I want to say the same thing is, when I speak about running a small business, and I'll say, if you back off and let people do what they want, you will know so fast. The good will separate out so fast, and it's fascinating because you'll get 7, 8 men and women together, and the good one will be just like boom.
Yep.
And it'll be in today's world, sure as shit. I'm going to promote your ass because I want you to stick around. Somebody else is going to figure out you're good and take them.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I was able to build myself to where I'm at now that quickly. Was because, I decided that I was going to be that motherfucker, for lack of a better term. And I just got headhunted everywhere that I went. Hey, we'll pay you more. Hey, we'll pay you more. Hey, we'll pay you more. Because I decided that it was as simple as I'm just going to outwork everybody. It was that easy. It's that easy nowadays, folks. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't make it harder than it is. Just outwork everybody and you will be successful. Period. End of story. It is special in today's world to be the person that works hard. So special.
Well, you're young enough to see it. At my age, I can look back on it and I can go, generally I can pick I would be willing to bet I'm 50 on, 50 off, just because in the first year or so, they're good. They could trick you. Because they know what you want to know. I always say, I need you on the second lap. First lap, some of them can get out and look fancy and good, and they come running in. Second lap, because this is a long game, kiddo. And you kicked ass, no questions asked. But now, can you repeat that? And if you can repeat it, then you're in.
Yeah. The other advice that I would give young men now in the work field is that exact thing, right? You can do it when you're motivated. You can do it, when you have a goal or set a goal, when you see success on the horizon. But can you do it when you're no longer motivated, when it sucks?
That's the game.
When you don't want to. That is what makes a successful motherfucker.
Yeah.
When you do it even when you don't want to, right? Yep. So I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's so true, right? Anybody can do anything when they're motivated, right? I work, I own a personal training private business.
I read that. Yeah.
So, I work with a lot of people that unfortunately quit on themselves when it gets hard. And it's like, it's easy when you first sign up for my program. It's easy when you're motivated, when you're seeing those changes, from the get-go. But once it slows down, once it gets hard, once those early morning become tough, can you continue to fucking do it? That is what separates successful people from
through
us.
The peaks and valleys. The valleys, in fact, I always say it in business, like when I'm doing well, it's almost like I have a good year, and I almost sometimes feel like I didn't feel like that was. I can't exactly explain why that was the good year, because I busted my balls just as hard the last year. But you need that cycle that you are able to divorce yourself from performance. Just keep busting your balls. That's what you're getting at. Just keep busting your balls.
That's it. Eventually it'll come.
Something will happen. And my old man used to say, if you keep busting your balls, it will probably be good. If you don't bust your balls, it positively won't be good.
That's fucking awesome.
So,
words to live by.
And what was the other one used to say? It was, sports in life are like a football field, but all the rules change when, so it's second down and 10. Oh, they just told you it's going to be only 3 downs this time. And you're like, well, you said 4. No.
Yeah.
It's the field's 75 feet wide. Guy starts to run. You're angling on him. All of a sudden they go, oh, no, it's 80 feet wide. So it's just
so many people, so many people spend so much time trying to change what the game is in this country, right? And you can do one of two things, right? You can spend all your time and effort and bandwidth trying to change the game, or you can learn how to be successful within the game. You know,
That's it.
It's just like, I'm sorry, but I hate to burst anybody's bubble that's watching this, but you're just not and will never be a big enough fish in the pond to change the game. You just
Nope.
won't. And
Nope.
I know I won't be. And you know, I've learned to stop to fight that, and I've learned to just learn to be successful the best way that I can within the game that we're playing now. And you know, that's a big lesson to learn.
Yep. Well, mine. One. I'll just pat myself on the back here. I had 2 hips and a knee replaced, and after 2.5 years of pain, PT, and I have a personal trainer. In the last 2 weeks, I started pounding on my mountain bike again. And I'm like, it sucked for a while. I just thought,
Fucking
I'm
go.
not going to let that shit go. I'm not going to give that thing up. So now at 64, I have to do this thing like, because when you're 64, there's nothing worse than a 64 brain and a 38-year-old body. Because I'm thinking, oh yeah, I could do it, And then, but each little turn, you're not quite as fast, and you just got to start coaching yourself, like, chill out, Mark, chill out. We do not want to lose this, And then I get myself all once in a while, my adrenaline's ripping, and actually it's the most fun because my bike will like skid out. And recovering from it is like the whole drill. But I'm like, oh, well, that's what I have to. I'm sorry. I'm not going to stop doing that shit.
There's no better fucking drug than that high that you get from like a really good fucking workout. You know what I mean? Cocaine, ecstasy, alcohol, none of it compares.
No.
You know,
a natural
when you're in that
endorphin
fucking
kick.
zone.
Oh, and you don't even know you did it for an hour. You barely remember.
You
But
get
it's
those
just like
butterflies.
this. Yeah,
you know,
and then you
fucking
sit down
awesome.
afterwards and you're like, oh. I would say it's like a flat ocean. There's no ripples. You're just looking out. No wind, just this beautiful flat ocean.
Yeah.
And then the wind comes along and screws it up again. But whatever. So now, I'd like to hear a little bit about. So aside from what you've learned, for me, I did need, just so everybody knows this, that I did need psychological and psychiatric help in my life. I had deep depressions. I had to get the help. So I don't want to criticize anybody if they don't.
No.
And you know that as well as I. I don't take anything. I won't take any sort of like a benzo, a Xanax, or any of that kind of shit. That's addictive. I'm not doing any pain meds unless specifically prescribed. I'll say to the guy, give me 10. That's it. And I'll say, don't let me have any more. Because that shit's chiclets to my brain. I have one little painkiller, and the first thing I'm thinking is, can I have a couple more?
Or
and I hate to admit it, sometimes I'll finish the bottle before I'm supposed to, and then, my wife's like, and I've taught myself from the time I got clean, just don't fuck with that stuff. I've seen medical people, been told what to do. I do that, and hopefully I get results. But that doesn't mean it doesn't fucking kill in the meantime. But with you, aside from working, what have been, that first year when you're clean, what were some of the just psychological difficulties you had, even though you weren't, like, what was because a lot of people need to hear that in recovery. First year is not a fun one.
Fuck no. It's so, the biggest thing that I did for myself was not put myself in a position where I was going to fail. Psychologically, I knew for a fact that I wasn't ready to go to dinner with my friends. I wasn't ready to go to a music festival. I wasn't ready to go to a concert. You know what I mean? I wasn't ready to go to your fucking team builder at Top Golf where everybody else is drinking. You know, so identifying that and being honest with yourself is a big part of being able to stay clean within that first year, and being okay with not being ready for that stuff. Is another big thing because there's so much social fucking pressure, man. Hey, let's go to dinner. Hey, let's. Hey, we haven't hung out in like 3 months. Where have you been? But being completely honest, people don't give a fuck. They don't care.
No,
they don't care. They care about themselves and what's going to make them happy. They don't care that you're in recovery. They don't care that you struggled with all this. They just want your company because your company is something that's going to make them happy. So identifying those things and being okay with saying, hey, I'm not fucking ready for that, and more importantly, getting rid of all the motherfuckers in your life that encourage that.
No,
That
the
was
old thing.
tough, dude.
Yeah.
That was tough. Just getting rid of people who I thought were my friends, who I quickly realized didn't give a fuck about anything but what I could provide for them as a DJ, while we're partying. That was a tough lesson to learn because I lost a lot of people that I thought were friends
Here,
in
here.
that process. And it broke my heart to have to cut off some of these relationships. But you have to do it. And you have to be okay with doing so, because in the end, if they're not encouraging you to be sober or stay sober, then they're just not worthy of your time. And it's a hard thing to come to grips with. So psychologically put yourself in a good spot, and never put yourself in a position where you're going to be tempted to fail. Because
you
if
will. You
yeah,
will. It's
because
that simple.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
And people hate when I say this, because I'm not supposed to say the quiet part out loud, to people that I'm working with. But like you said, you're going to fail. You're going to relapse. It's going to happen. 1000%. It's going to fucking happen. And how you deal with that will determine whether you're able to stay sober or not, and that's,
I went back to detox. That was the bell ringer for me. I went rehab, detox. And when I went to detox, nothing glamorous about that shit. You're in there, they're fucking got beepers all over you, and you are fucked up. And that's what it took for me. But the other thing about the thing with people is I am now been all my life clean. And I would argue that of all my quote hombres, cool dudes, hip guys around Philly, 4 of them are still friends of mine, in touch with me. That's it. And now let me tell you what, they're just, that's the statement, and slowly they whittle away, but it's cool because you're filling it in with other stuff. So you just, you don't take it as personally.
No. Yeah. And filling it in with other stuff is also important, as an addict. It's in you. It will always be in you. It will never go away. If I go past a fucking airport bar while I'm traveling for work, it's in my right here, man. I get that little fucking feeling.
Don't they sound like there's a party don't they sound like
dude,
it's everything?
It's it's 9 a.m. They're having a fucking blast, man. I'm like, what the fuck?
Why can't I?
Exactly.
They look like they're having so much fun. It is true. It is true. So now let's get on, as we're kind of bringing this a little bit to a close. Your existing job, very specifically. Give us a little more detail on that.
So I get to travel the United States, and I get to find and identify veterans that need drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and mental health treatment. So basically what happens is, whenever, I either identify a veteran or somebody calls me, doesn't matter where they're at, what time of day it is, what day of the week it is, I either hop my happy ass into my privately owned vehicle or in an airplane, and I go, give this veteran support. A massive part of my job is to deal with the VA and the processes at the VA to be able to secure that treatment for the veteran. I don't want to disparage anybody that works for the VA, because it's never the little lady sitting behind a desk or the provider or anything like that, right? But the VA is one of the hardest fucking government entities that I've ever had to deal with, as far as actually being able to secure the treatment for the veteran that the veteran deserves. So, sometimes it takes months. I just worked with a young man. I just saw him on Monday, as a matter of fact, and was able to secure him treatment yesterday. We worked on this for the better part of 4 months, from the time this gentleman called me to when I was able to get him into treatment. He had a service dog, and the VA and their substance abuse disorder program doesn't take service dogs. So at that point, they're supposed to refer out to the community and the private sector, right? But the VA doesn't like to spend money on veterans. That's the silent part out loud. Again, not trying to disparage anybody that works at the VA, but this is the truth. It took 4 months of advocating for this veteran. It took, 4 months of him going to appointments and repeatedly telling his provider, hey, I'm going to die if I don't get into treatment. You're not taking my service dog. You can't ask me to leave my service dog at home, because if I do that, and I have one as well, I'm also going to die. So it's extremely difficult to work through the VA to be able to get some of these veterans into treatment. So my job is to, for lack of a better term, deal with the VA bullshit and red tape to be able to expedite the process and get the veteran into treatment, the treatment that they deserve, whether that be through the VA or through private treatment centers. Couldn't care less. What matters is that I get a veteran into treatment. So if I had to put a quick synopsis on what I do, that's what I do. So I lead the department that does that for my recovery center.
Well, thank God there's people around like that. I wanted to ask you, this is really off the subject. There's a guy who struggled with these sort of problems at his younger age, and then in New Mexico, he became one of the largest, the most purchased artist for Native American paintings, which are really cool. And his name is Poteet Victory, Poteet Victory. I've
never heard of the gentleman, but it's
pretty cool stuff.
Look him up. Yeah,
it's just pretty cool stuff. And then, so with that, listen, we always ask at the end, but I think you've answered it effectively. But why are you doing this?
So again, I wish I had this super fucking selfless, cool answer for you, but I don't. This is therapy for me. Paying it forward helps me stay sober. I can't, in good conscience, show up to a call with a veteran and then me be fucked up as well.
That's a bad move.
It's extremely hypocritical to do that. And even if you didn't, right? Even if you were just out fucking on a weekend and got fucking hammered, right? You still don't feel good, getting across veterans and preaching how awesome sobriety is when you're doing the wrong thing.
No, well, that's
it's hypocritical. And, a fisherman knows another fisherman, meaning the veteran's going to know that I'm full of fucking shit, right?
Yeah, they'll sniff that out.
Yeah. So for me, this is you asked me, earlier, and I probably should have thought about this and been a little bit more concise about this, but a big part of why I'm able to stay sober is because I selfishly get to help other veterans that have been that are experiencing the things that I experienced in the past. So having that purpose for me is therapy for me, and that is what I do, why I do.
How do we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my email is Jaime, Jaim as in Mike, and then e.martinez@knvista.com. If you
say that again and say it again and then spell the KN whatever. So just go ahead and one more time.
Yeah. So it's Jaime, Jaim as in Mike, e.martinez, Martinez, and then it's Canyon Vista, CANYON Vista, VISTA.com. If you shoot me an email, doesn't matter what part of the country you're at, I will make sure that the veteran that you're called or emailing about gets the treatment that they deserve. I don't care where you're located. I don't care what time of day it is. I don't care what day of the week it is. If there's a veteran need, you shoot me an email and I will ensure that veteran gets the treatment they deserve.
Well, thank you very much. And hey, thank you for taking the time. It's cool shit, and you're the kind of person I want to get on. I want to get the message out. I spend a fair amount of my time here talking to different people of all trades and the like, but end up migrating more and more towards people with recovery stories just because, like you said, a fisherman knows a fisherman.
Yes, sir.
I hate fishing, but I ain't going out there floating in some goddamn boat trying to catch a fish. No, maybe if they maybe if they were in a little box and I could just drop my thing down and pick them out, that might be fun. But Anyway, well, listen, thanks so much for being on it again, Jaime Martinez. And if you enjoyed this episode, please take a look at it at YouTube or listen on Spotify, Apple. We're also on TikTok, Instagram, etc. And we also have other episodes that you may enjoy. So with that in mind, thank you so much for coming on.
Mark, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.